Good evening and welcome to the May 5th, 2025 meeting of the Shawnee Planning Commission. I'm Commissioner Beanhoff and I'll be chairing this meeting. I'll do roll call at this time. Commissioner Peterson is absent. Commissioner Fox? Absent. Commissioner Botka is absent. Commissioner Nennick?
Here.
Commissioner Lucky?
Here.
Commissioner Van Wallingham?
Here.
Commissioner Aber?
Here.
Commissioner Hollick?
Here.
Commissioner Good?
Here.
Commissioner Good is online. Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Hanson is online. Thank you. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. First item on the agenda this evening is a consent item. Consent item 1 is listed under the consent items agenda. Unless there's a request to remove the item from the consent agenda, the item will be approved in one motion. Is there a request to remove the item from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Aber.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Van Wallingham?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Take us into new business. First item of new business is RZ 25-03, PP 25-07, YVA Family Estate at Clear Creek located in the 6700 block of Clare Road, rezoning and final plat.
Good evening, Mark Zilsdorf, City Planning Staff. The applicant seeks approval of a rezoning from RS Residential Suburban to AG Agricultural for an undeveloped property located in the 6700 block of Clare Road. The property was previously zoned from AG Agricultural to RS Residential Suburban in 2005 for the development of a single-family residential subdivision that was never built. The rezoning will allow the owner to develop the property with a single-family home, a barn, and other related residential estate type uses. The final plat contains one lot, one tract, and public road right-of-way on 34.95 acres. Subject site is located in western Shawnee, located in the 6700 block of Clare Road. The property consists of 2 unplatted parcels totaling 34.95 acres. Property is currently undeveloped and is comprised of overgrown pastures and grasslands. Clear Creek with its wooded streamway corridor and associated floodplain encumber a portion of the site. Just a little background on this. The northern 14-acre parcel was split from a larger 20-acre parcel in 2006 in preparation for the rezoning and plat of a proposed single-family subdivision. Shawnee Planning Commission in May 2005 voted to approve preliminary plat for Village of Clear Creek containing 74 lots on 71.4 acres. The Shawnee City Council voted to rezone the property from AG to RS at their June 2005 meeting. And then in July of 2005, the final plat for Village of Clear Creek subdivision was approved. However, the final plat was never recorded with the Johnson County Register of Deeds office. And this slide here basically shows you that subdivision, and the subject property that we're talking about this evening is outlined in the thin red line around that. Johnson County Wastewater installed public sewer mains throughout this site in 2007-2008 timeframe in anticipation of the development of the subdivision. Those lines are still in place. The developer abandoned the project in 2008. Several developers have inquired about developing the property over the years since 2008, but with no success. The 2 northern parcels, which is the subject site, consist of approximately 35 acres and was sold by the bank to the current owner for purposes of developing a single-family residential estate type home. The adjacent southern 40 acres was recently acquired by a developer who obtained rezoning and preliminary plat approval in just this past March for a new single-family residential subdivision. Stated earlier, the applicant intends to develop the property with a single-family estate type residence in accordance with Shawnee Municipal Code 1710, which is the agricultural zoning district use regulations. As far as the project timeline, this project was submitted to the city on April 8th. Public hearing notices were mailed out April 10th to 28 individual property owners. A public hearing notice was mailed or was published on April 15th. And then the public hearing for this item before the Planning Commission is this evening on May 5th. City Council consideration is tentative for May 27th, 2025, which happens to be a Tuesday because of the Memorial Day holiday this year. This slide here shows the future land use framework and the current zoning. The subject site is designated as traditional residential neighborhood. In the back portion along the stream channel or Clear Creek is designated as open space within the Achieve Shawnee Future Land Use Framework of the city's comprehensive plan. The current zoning is RS, as stated earlier. Just to kind of review the transportation framework portion of the comp plan, this site is bordered by Clare Road on the east side and right of way for future 67th Street to the north. Clare Road is designated as a minor arterial in the framework of the comprehensive plan, and 67th Street is designated as a future major collector. As you're well aware, Clare Road is currently an unimproved 2-lane ditch section road. The proposed development of the property for one single family home does not warrant improvements to either of the adjacent roadways at this point. However, the required right of way for both streets is being dedicated with this final plat in accordance with their ultimate roadway classifications. Neither street is currently identified on the city's capital improvement plan. And then park and recreation framework. Comp plan indicates Clare Road to be a future share the road and shared use path route, while 67th Street is anticipated to contain a shared use path adjacent to it when it is constructed at one point in the future. The final plat does contain a designated stream corridor along the Clear Creek channel that will allow for the construction of future shared use path along the stream channel. And that is consistent with the stream shared use path and stream channel to the for the subdivision to the south that was recently approved in March. Again, the current site is zoned RS. Surrounding zoning to the north is zoned agricultural. Does have a single large lot residential property in that corner, at 5 acres in the northeast corner. To the south, property is zoned R1. It is currently vacant, but was recently approved for a single family residential subdivision. Property to the east is zoned a combination of R1 and RS property and ag, which current uses contain large lot residential use and then also single family residential subdivision. And property to the west is zoned agricultural and contains agricultural uses and large lot residential uses. Here, this slide just basically shows that the current property is zoned RS and the applicant is requesting to zone it to agricultural. As far as considerations for the rezoning, the development of this site for a single home does not meet the intent of the traditional residential neighborhood designation of the comprehensive plan. The traditional residential neighborhood designation would include single family detached residential uses on lots typically within a subdivision, similar to the subdivision proposed for this property in 2005, or like the existing subdivisions to the east. As stated earlier, this property was rezoned from ag to RS in 2005 as part of a larger single-family development that followed the comprehensive plan. That development was abandoned in 2008. The property went back to the bank for many years. The city has met with several potential developers over that time about developing the property into a residential development, but no one was able to make it work out. And after years of trying to sell it for development, the northern 2 parcels, or the 35 acres of the subject site, were sold to the applicant for the development of a single lot for residential use. Development of the property for one home is permitted under the RS zoning district. However, due to the applicant's desire to develop the site into an estate type property with a large primary residential structure, a detached garage and shop, a pool with pool house, and a large horse barn with paddock, the RS zoning poses limitations to those plans. Rezoning the property back to the ag zoning district will allow the property to be fully developed as a single large estate type property. The ag zoning also acts as a holding zone for property where future expansion is possible, but not yet appropriate or feasible. The rezoning the property from RS back to AG will allow the applicant to develop the property as a single family residential estate that productively uses the property until such time as it is ready for more intense development. And just to remind the Planning Commission of the 8 factors they should consider when reviewing a request for rezoning. And I won't read through those this evening. The applicant also requests a final plat for YVA Family Estate at Clear Creek, which is a 1-lot agricultural residential subdivision. The final plat includes 1 lot, 1 tract, and public road right-of-way on 35 acres. All bulk requirements have been satisfied. The plat consists of 1 lot and 1 tract and public road right-of-way. The lot exceeds the minimum lot size requirements of the ag zoning district. And a 50-foot building setback line has been provided adjacent to Clare Road and 67th Street frontages as required. Access will be provided by a residential driveway from Clare Road, and the proposed lot layout and access are acceptable for circulation and public safety. Utilities are available or will be extended to the property. Multiple sanitary sewer mains traverse the site, and the applicant shall coordinate with Johnson County Wastewater regarding access to the public sewer system. And all utilities for this property shall be placed underground. City established 5 priority pillars as part of a strategic vision for the community known as Imagine Shawnee. This particular project aligns best with priority pillar number 1, which is to attract diverse housing to meet the needs of a growing city. Under the milestone of develop a mix of housing options to serve a broad range of households and income levels. The project also aligns with priority pillar number 4, which is lead in maximizing and integrating natural resources. And they've, by preserving the stream corridor on the back third of this property, will protect the natural resources and also provide for a future recreational trail. With staff's recommendation, while a single residential home on 35 acres is not the highest and best use for this property in accordance with the comprehensive plan, it does provide for a single family residential use that is consistent with the existing development pattern in the immediate area, particularly to the north. Staff is not opposed to the rezoning request. The property has remained undeveloped for 20 years since being rezoned from ag to RS. The applicant recently acquired the property and desires to develop the property into an estate type use. And the ag zoning will allow them to use the property in this manner. The final plat provides the dedications of right-of-way needed for full build out of both Clare Road and future 67th Street. Plat also includes dedication of a stream corridor easement along the Clear Creek channel that, in addition to providing protection of the streamway, will also allow for the construction of a future shared use path along this channel. And with that, staff would recommend the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing on this item this evening. Staff would also note that the project does require final approval of the City Council. And pending a recommendation from the Planning Commission, the project is tentatively scheduled for consideration from the City Council on Tuesday, May 27th. With that, staff would recommend approval of project RZ 25-03, rezoning from RS Residential Suburban to AG Agricultural for property located in the 6700 block of Clare Road, subject to the condition listed within your staff report and presented on the screen and before you. And then staff would further recommend approval of project FP 25-06, final plat for the YVA family estate at Clear Creek located in the 6700 block of Clare Road, subject to the 5 conditions as listed within your staff report and also before you on the screen. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Is the applicant present?
He's online and I will unmute him so he can, oh, I'm sorry. You're here for the applicant.
Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Oh, hold
Turn the
on.
mic on.
Let me get that on for you. There you go.
Name's Tim Tucker, Tucker. I'm with Phelps Engineering, address 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. I think Mark did a really good job representing the project. Don't really have any additional input on staff presentation. We're in agreement with all stipulations, both for zoning and for preliminary plat. And I'll answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. And I know I mentioned it, but just for the record, are you in agreement with staff's recommendation and conditions of approval?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does the commission have any questions for the applicant or the staff? Mr. Hollick?
Yeah, just to clarify, and I think you clarified it in your presentation, Mark, it's a little unusual that we just heard the parcels to the south being a subdivision just a few weeks ago, right? And it's just strictly coincidence that this one just adjacent to it, to the north, or there is any tie at all to that subdivision that's going to go into the parcel to the south?
There is not. There are 2 separate owners. And this particular site was conveyed to the current owner before the other one was under contract from the way I understand it.
Okay, just purely coincidental
Yes.
that in all of Shawnee. I got you. The second question I have is agriculture doesn't really capture what the intended use of the parcel is, right? But I know you said you couldn't. There's no zoning designation for residential, but is there some kind of estate or something? Because agriculture just doesn't seem to be what they want to use the thing for. It's an estate that they want to use the land for.
Under the residential zoning district, under any residential zoning district, they're limited to 1 accessory structure in addition to the primary residence, and that structure is limited in size. So the agricultural zoning district is the one zoning district that does allow for single-family residential uses, but also doesn't place restrictions on the number of structures or the size of those structures. So the fact that this applicant wants to have a detached garage, a pool house,
Gotcha.
and a horse barn, that's one of the reasons. And then the horse barn would typically, an agricultural type barn would be limited in its overall size. That therefore with the agricultural zoning, it wouldn't have that size limitation on it.
Makes perfect sense. Thanks.
I would add too, the agriculture district honestly is a residential zone as well. They're allowed to have a residence in the ag zone. It doesn't have to be tilled or farmed to be considered ag. Like Mark said, it's a holding zone. The other caveat to this too, and why we're supportive, is I believe it's their intention someday to have horses, and animal horse permitting is regulated in a different section of the code. But in ag, it opens up the avenue for them to have more than say 1 or 2 horses, and they have 30 acres, so they're able to have livestock without impacting the area. That's another reason for the ag zone.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Nunnick?
Yes, probably a little bit more just educational and background on this, but you mentioned that there had been several attempts to develop this post the original failure in 2000. I guess it was originally pulled in 2008, which would make sense at that time. Why were the failures of the other attempts? Was there a common theme as why they failed? I'm just curious about the land and why this has not worked. And then just the south, there's going to be one.
Yeah, well, I think several things. I mean, obviously this kind of failed back during the recession and went back to the bank.
That one I get. But
There was several limiting factors. Obviously, the cost of development increased over time. the fact that the sanitary sewers were already in place, so any development was very difficult and costly to go through a redesign. So they were pretty much stuck with the layout that was originally approved in 2005. We've had several developers that wanted to come through and do smaller lots. We had one developer come through and wanted to do like almost a multifamily townhome kind of product on it, and it just wasn't. And back at the time in the early 2000s, we weren't interested in doing anything smaller than the RS zoning. I mean, the theory was back then anything west of Gleason Road was going to be large lot residential. So I think it's a factor of several things. One is increased cost. One, I think the way the city viewed the development in that area, and it never seemed to work out.
So I guess that answers to an extent. But I'm just curious why, but I'm talking about more since then, not back in 2008, but more recent.
I don't know that we can answer your question. We can only speculate that from the time it went back to the bank, and the ownership of the property being a bank, and inflation and things like that over time, that when this was developed, there was probably a cost parameter for those larger size lots with all the street improvements and everything. With the same amount of lots that you were going to get in 2002 compared to 2022 or 2024, building the same streets, the same storm, more increases in stormwater quality, different standards that have changed since 2002. I would speculate that the cost to do multiple lots of that size was not feasible. It probably didn't pencil out to do the infrastructure as it was originally conceived. At 2002 prices, even land prices have skyrocketed since then in Johnson County.
Oh.
So it would be a mathematical formula of something penciling out with what was approved 20 years ago probably just wasn't working for those folks. That's why we kept seeing multiple development lots, small renter type homes on very small lots, things that weren't in continuity with what had already developed out there under the old standards.
But immediately to the south, it's going to work.
Yeah, well, you have to think he went to an R1 zone, which put 60 some lots on it, on that remaining acreage, rather than probably the entire acreage was like 70 lots, 75 lots for the full 70 some acres. And he was able to make 60 some lots pencil out. And he's still trying to figure out how to improve Clare Road to a 22-foot standard as well. And so that we're not at the final plat stage on that yet, even at that amount of lots.
Anyone else from the commission have any questions? Commissioner Lucky?
Yeah, this is for staff. Can we confirm the project number? I've got 3 different project numbers on my agenda. I've got, or for the final plat, I've got 2503, 06, and 07.
Okay, let me see here.
I just want to make sure which one we're gonna approve. We're gonna vote on. I mean, the report says 06, but
I believe it's 06. Let
okay,
me double
just making
check.
sure.
Hold on just a minute. Good catch.
My bet is it's 06 because I think 03, 04, and 05 are going to council on the 14th.
Yeah, I believe it's 06. Rick, isn't that what you said? 06? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Mark, to clarify, it's RZ 25-03 and FP 25-06.
That is correct.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucky. Any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant or staff? Hearing none, thank you. That'll take us into the Public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move into commission discussion. Is there any discussion from the commission this evening? This item. Commissioner Hollick?
I mean, seems like a reasonable application. I think it fits with the golden factors, right? Character of the neighborhood, the fact that it's sat vacant for 20 years and was not able to be developed in the original intent in 2005. So, I mean, I think it fits with the factors and they very nicely and is ripe for rezoning. So I think it's a decent project.
Any other discussion from the commission? Commissioner Aber?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Actually very informative on all the wastewater underneath, restricting what goes on under there. This is probably a good thing to have this go in there, and then 30, 40 years from now, they can develop into something else.
Any other discussion from the commission? With that, Mark, a question for staff. Okay, to go ahead and do this in one motion? Do we need to separate it?
Do separate motions, one for the rezoning and one for the final plat.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone care to make a motion on this item? Commissioner Aber?
I recommend that we approve the rezoning first, Mark, or project RZ 2503, rezoning from to the agricultural agricultural district for YVA Family Estates at Clear Creek, located in the 6700 block of Clare Road. Again, like we've mentioned, this seems to fit with the golden factors, and while not exactly what we wanted in the comprehensive plan, is a good use for this property.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Pollock?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for RZ 25-03 YVA Family Estate at Clear Creek, located in the 6700 block of Clare Road. All in favor? Any other discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That would take us to the final plat. Does anyone from the commission have a motion on the final plat? Commissioner Nunick?
According to staff recommendations, approval of project FP 25-06, final plat approval for YVA Family Estate, Clear Creek, located in the 6700 block of Clare Road, subject to the following 5 conditions.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Lucky?
A second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of project FP 25-06. Final plat approval for YVA Family Estate at Clear Creek, located in the 6700 block of Clare Road, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Take us to item number 2 under new business, PUD 25-02, Cedar Trace at 22604 West 75th Street, planned unit development, rezoning, and preliminary development plan.
Good evening, Mark Zilsdorf, City Planning staff again. The applicant proposes to construct a new attached single-family residential development at 22604 West 74th Street on approximately 5.6 acres. The applicant seeks approval of rezoning and a preliminary development plan for a planned unit development project. The rezoning request is from AG Agricultural to PUDMR, which is Planned Unit Development Mixed Residential. The proposed preliminary development plan includes 21 residential dwelling units and 10 duplex buildings and 1 existing single-family dwelling. If the rezoning and preliminary development plan are approved, the applicant will be required to submit a final development plan and a final plat for approval prior to issuance of any building permits. The subject site is located in the southwest part of Shawnee, generally located east of K7 Highway between Silver Hill Street and Monticello Road on the north side of West 75th Street. The property address is 22604 West 75th. The property is developed with a single-family home located on the southeast part of the site. And with the exception of the landscaping and lawn area around the home, the remainder of the relatively flat property consists of mowed grassland and a few scattered trees. The unplatted parcel is zoned agricultural. The 1,773 square foot ranch style single family home was constructed in 2003, according to Johnson County property records. And other than the existing home, the property has no past entitlements or approvals. The applicant proposes to develop a single-family attached residential subdivision under provisions of SMC 17.54 planned unit development districts. The proposed development plan includes 21 residential units and 10 duplex buildings, one single-family dwelling. Project also includes an open space tract with a picnic pavilion, landscaping, public and private infrastructure, and other related site improvements. And the PUD MR zoning district is the appropriate zoning for the intended development. As far as the project timeline, this project was submitted to the city on April 8th. Public hearing notices were mailed to 59 surrounding property owners on April 10th. Public hearing notices were published in the legal record on April 15th. In the Planning Commission consideration of this item, the public hearing is this evening on May 5th. And then City Council consideration is tentatively scheduled for May 27th of 2025. Here you'll see on the left, future land use framework. The subject site is designated as traditional residential neighborhood within the future land use framework of the comprehensive plan. The traditional residential neighborhood designation indicates single-family detached residential uses on a lot, typically within a subdivision. Just to go over the transportation framework, this site is adjacent to 75th Street, which is a designated minor arterial street in the transportation framework of the Achieve Shawnee Comprehensive Plan. 75th Street is currently a 2-lane ditch section roadway. An improvement of 75th Street between K7 and Shoto Street is currently shown for construction on the city's capital improvement program in 2031. Along with construction of an interchange at the K7 and 75th Street intersection. Both projects are dependent on KDOT funding and could occur later in the 2030s based on KDOT's programming priorities. As far as the park and recreation framework, Monticello Springs Park is the closest public park, which is approximately 3/4 of a mile to the south. Pedestrian and bicycle access is limited in this area. 75th Street is designated as a share the road bicycle route, providing on-street bicycle access east to Shoto Street. And then once east of Shoto Street, 75th Street west. 75th Street west of Shoto does not have sidewalks. Shoto Street south of 75th Street is a shared the road route with a sidewalk on the west side, providing means of access south. 75th Street east of Shoto and connecting Monticello Road both have on-street bicycle lanes and sidewalks on both sides of the street, providing connectivity to the south. Current zoning of this property is agricultural. Surrounding zonings to the north include RS zoning and developed with single-family residential uses. To the south, property is zoned DU duplex and agricultural, for single-family and residential duplexes. To the east, property is zoned RS and developed with single-family residential uses. And then property to the west is zoned planned unit development mixed residential and AG agricultural and developed with a single-family residence and also 2 and 3-plex townhome units. This slide just shows the existing agricultural zoning designation on the left, and then the proposed or requested planned unit development mixed residential zoning on the right. Planned unit development mixed residential district allows for differing residential types while governing building materials, site layout, and use in order to provide for a different type of residential development that is compatible with surrounding community. It allows for more flexible land use regulations to facilitate the most advantageous techniques of development to encourage innovation and design that meet the growing and current demands of a greater variety in type, design, and land use of a particular site. Per the development standards for the PUD MR district, detached, single-family residential, attached, semi-detached, or multifamily dwellings, townhomes, and condominiums are permitted within the PUD MR zoning district. The proposed development plan of 10 duplex buildings and 1 single-family home meet the requirements of SMC 1754. It should also be noted that the accompanying development plan that is proposed is tied to the zoning approval. In other words, if the rezoning is approved to the PUD MR zoning district for 10 duplex buildings and 1 single-family home, then the property must be developed in that manner. It cannot be developed with single-family homes, townhomes, apartments, or any other more intense uses without first going back through the entire rezoning notification and approval process. So while not in alignment with the traditional residential neighborhood designation as shown on the future land use framework of the comprehensive plan, the proposed use is similar to and compatible with the adjacent developments of Willow Ridge townhomes to the west and the Settle Downs duplex homes to the south. These areas are identified as mixed residential neighborhoods within the comprehensive plan. The extension of a similar use on this adjacent 5.6 acre tract is not out of character for the area. It meets many of the mixed residential neighborhood framework considerations by providing lots with access on local residential street with development entry connection to a major collector street. It provides sidewalks on one side of the street, allowing for pedestrian connection to future sidewalks along 75th Street once it's improved. It provides buildings that do not exceed 2 stories in height. It provides a variety of architectural materials and design. It provides private amenities that are appropriate for the neighborhood. It provides appropriate building types for the area, such as single family and duplexes. It provides appropriate land use and development plans for an infill site. And it provides a transition between single family uses and the more intense uses such as multifamily, commercial, industrial, and highways. Here again, just to remind the Planning Commission, when considering a rezoning request, they should take into consideration these 8 items that are listed on the screen and also included within your staff report. Stated previously, the preliminary development plan is for a new attached single-family residential subdivision. The proposed development includes 21 residential units, consisting of 10 duplex buildings and 1 existing single-family home on a new public cul-de-sac street off of 75th Street. The existing single 2-story home will remain on a lot within the development. The project includes an open space tract with a picnic area and non-programmed open space, providing common recreation for the development's residents. A dry detention basin will be located on a tract in the northeast corner of the site for managing stormwater runoff. Project will also include landscaping, public and private infrastructure, and other related site improvements. The applicant has indicated a commitment to preserving the existing trees around the perimeter of the site to the extent possible to maintain the natural buffer between this development and the existing residential or the existing adjacent residences. The property will be final platted into lots to allow conveyance into individual ownership. The units will be for sale, although there is no city restriction that would prevent an owner from leasing the unit to a tenant. A homeowners association will be formed for the ownership and maintenance of the 2 common tracts and the improvements within those common tracts. The PUD MR zoning district requires a minimum parcel size to be rezoned from the PUD MR district shall be a minimum of 4 acres in size and shall provide 2,800 square feet of land area per dwelling unit. This particular plan provides for an area of 5.4 acres to be rezoned and 11,195 square feet of land area per dwelling unit. Required setbacks in this zoning district are 30 feet from all peripheral property lines and a minimum of 20 feet from public street right-of-way lines. All required setbacks are being met or exceeded. Code also requires single-family and two-family dwellings to be separated by a minimum of 10 feet. All buildings in the proposed plan are shown to meet or exceed the separation requirements. As far as access and circulation, a single public street cul-de-sac off of West 75th Street provides access to this development. Residential unit access will be by private driveways from the cul-de-sac within the subdivision. No direct vehicular access will be off of 75th Street. The interior public street will be improved with a sidewalk on one side to provide pedestrian walkability and connectivity to future improvements on 75th Street. Improvements are not being made to 75th Street as part of this project due to it being a short mid-block segment, and it is anticipated to be undertaken as part of a larger city-initiated project in the future. The lot layout, points of access, and the street network for this development are compatible with the city's circulation plan and acceptable for circulation and public safety purposes. As far as parking, per city code, this development requires 42 parking spaces, which is equal to 2 off-street parking spaces per residential unit. This plan provides 84 total off-street parking spaces within the unit's garages and driveways. And then there is, in addition to the 84 off-street parking spaces, there is additional parking that would be available on street, just legally parked along the side of the street within the development. The applicant has provided a landscape plan for the development plan. The submitted plan indicates a layout for the required street trees, addresses open space tree requirements, provides a basic building foundation landscape plan, and a typical plan for screening of utility pedestals. Generally, the provided plan meets the requirements of SMC 1757 landscaping. However, a final landscape plan, including open space tree calculations, updated tree species list, tree preservation plans, a detailed planting plan for the building foundation and lots, and other site landscaping shall be submitted as part of the final development plan. And while tree preservation is not specifically required for residential developments, the applicant has proposed to maintain the existing tree lines along the site perimeters to the extent possible. A tree preservation plan shall be submitted with the final development plan showing how these trees will be protected during all phases of construction. And then as part of the landscaping requirements, primary yard areas that are disturbed are required to be sodded. City's multifamily amenity policy recommends that multifamily developments with less than 25 dwelling units provide at least one amenity. The proposed plan indicates a common tract with a picnic area and non-programmed open space. Each residential unit will also contain a basement, providing residents storm refuge. And the proposed amenities are in compliance with the city's amenity policy. Architectural elevations, the development will consist of 1- and 2-story duplex buildings. Each residential unit in the 1-story buildings will be approximately 1,915 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 3 baths. Each residential unit in the 2-story buildings will be approximately 2,000 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. All units will have full basements and 2-car garages. And each unit will include a covered front entry, an open floor plan, walk-in closets, laundry room, and rear patio space, or covered patios for the 1-story units. This is the elevation of the single-story duplex. That's the elevation of the 2-story duplex. While building materials and color palettes have not been finalized at this stage of design, although the proposed elevations indicate a quality design by using a variety of exterior materials and textures, varying roof lines with variation and relief on the building elevations. However, the architectural elevations do not reflect the stucco and stone veneer products that were stated in the applicant's project narrative. The inclusion of masonry materials is required to meet the city's multifamily residential design standards and shall be reflected on the architectural elevations submitted as part of the final development plan. The architectural form and details of the proposed buildings are in general conformance with the city's multifamily residential design standards, as demonstrated by providing 2 different building types with varying architectural design, varying roof lines, variety of exterior building materials, textures, facade projections and design elements, site amenities as per the multifamily amenity policy, basements providing storm refuge for residents, new landscaping and preservation of existing trees, adequate off-street parking and garage parking, and adequate public safety apparatus access. A preliminary plat was also submitted with the development plan. It contains 11 lots, 2 tracks and public street right-of-way. If the rezoning and preliminary development plan are approved, the applicant is required to submit a final plat for review and approval by the city and recording with the Johnson County Register of Deeds office prior to issuance of any building permits. The bulk requirements of the final plat have been met. The plat includes a 30-foot peripheral boundary setback line around the perimeter of the site. And it also provides a minimum 20-foot platted front building setbacks adjacent to the street frontages. A 20-foot platted front building setbacks are required adjacent to the street frontages. However, this applicant has provided 30-foot front setbacks in all instances, except for one 20-foot setback that is provided on a corner lot where the building sides up to the street frontage. All bulk requirements have been met on the preliminary plat. Public sewers and other utilities are or will be made available to serve this site. All utilities shall be placed underground. Telephone, electric, and cable service facilities are to be placed within the rear and side yards as required by policy statement 24, except as specifically varied or waived by this action of the governing body. The applicant is proposing utilities to be placed within easements adjacent to the street right-of-way on the front of each lot in an effort to minimize disruption to the existing tree lines at the rear of several of the lots. Due to the small number of lots being served and the desire not to disturb the existing trees around the perimeter, staff is agreeable with this request. And as part of the landscape plan, the applicant did provide a typical utility box landscape screening plan that will be used to screen the utility cabinets that would be placed in the fronts. Just to go over transportation review, they did provide a traffic study for this. The applicant did provide his traffic study and was reviewed by our Public Works Department. And in conclusion, the proposed development is expected to generate 6 trips in the AM peak hour, 9 trips in the PM peak hour, and 111 daily trips. This additional traffic volume is not expected to materially impact the operation of the existing roadway network in the near to medium future. The city does have plans to improve 75th Street in this area and to build an interchange at K7 and West 75th Street. However, these projects may not occur until the 2030s. Or engineering, public engineer or development engineering review, the cul-de-sac bulb for this project will be offset in an atypical design in order to accommodate the unique shape and dimensions of the development site. The cul-de-sac design will allow lots to be arranged around it with the proper setbacks and frontages, and ensuring required operation and turning movements for fire apparatus within the cul-de-sac. There's a kind of a, in your staff report, I don't have a slide of that here, but in your staff report, there is a picture of that, kind of the turning radiuses that we had to accommodate for the fire apparatus by having that cul-de-sac bulb offset like that. The applicant also submitted a preliminary storm drainage study showing conceptual grading plan, a drainage system, a drainage area map, and drainage table summarizing the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis for the site. The study is substantially complete and adequate for this plan. This project is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 1116, which is stormwater treatment, which pertains to the implementation of stormwater treatment facilities to preserve and enhance the quality of stormwater runoff. This project is proposing the installation of a proprietary stormwater treatment unit, extended dry detention basin, and native vegetation to meet the level of service to meet the stormwater treatment section of the code. The applicant also submitted a stormwater detention study showing a conceptual layout of the detention facility, a drainage area map, and estimated storage volumes and allowable release rates. The preliminary study is substantially complete and adequate for this development. The applicant is proposing an extended dry detention basin, and the extended dry detention basin will be designed in accordance with Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. And then also the applicant provided a fire code analysis sheet as part of the plan, which shows compliance with the 2018 International Fire Code and current amendments. Fire department staff reviewed the submitted plans and found them to be in substantial compliance at time of review. The city established the 5 priority pillars of the strategic vision, developing a strategic vision for the community known as the Imagine Shawnee Plan. The proposed project aligns with priority pillar number 1, which is to attract diverse housing to meet the needs of a growing city. Under the milestones of developing a mix of housing options to serve a broad range of households and income levels, to revitalize needed areas with infill housing developments, and to integrate multifamily housing into existing developments. This plan provides a high-quality attached housing option in the west part of Shawnee, and the proposed use and plan are sensitive to the surrounding uses and in general conformance with the intent of the city's comprehensive plan. As far as staff's recommendation, staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning and preliminary development plan based on consideration of the surrounding zonings and the surrounding existing land uses, taking into consideration the comprehensive plan and review of the proposed development plan and the intended land use. Staff would recommend the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing on this item this evening. Also, just to note that this project does require final approval by the City Council, and pending a recommendation of the Planning Commission, the project is tentatively scheduled for consideration before the Council on Tuesday, May 27th. With that, staff would recommend approval of project PUD 25-02, which includes rezoning from AG agricultural to planned unit development mixed residential, and a preliminary development plan for Cedar Trace located at 22604 West 75th Street, subject to the 7 conditions that are listed within the staff report. They are also here on the screen before you here. With that, that concludes staff's presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mark. Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Dan Foster with Schlegel, Foster, 14920 West 107th Street, Lenexa, Kansas. Also here tonight is Nancy Ruff, who's the current property owner and the developer part of the TJR Properties project. Mark, can you go ahead and put up my plan view, please? Thanks. So Mark provided a really good outline of the project. So I just wanted to kind of go over a few key components of this project and not really get into the specific typical detail types of things. First of all, we are asking for a PUDMR, and that's, planned unit development mixed residential. Part of the reason why we're doing that is, 1, we're keeping the existing single family home on the site. 2, our client would like to develop them as attached single family homes is how the code puts it. We call them attached villas, that type of thing, which is similar to the Willow Ridge project and similar to the Settle Downs in terms of use, not necessarily in terms of quality of the product per se, or how, ultimately will be built out. For example, Willow Ridge has 2 and 3 unit combined buildings, whereas this one's all 2 unit combined buildings. I will say that the lot sizes within this project are equal to or larger than the lot sizes that are in the Willow Ridge. And I mean by the individual side. On those, some of those Willow Ridge center units are more narrow. And then it's also similar or larger than the settled down units, just to kind of give you an idea of the size of the unit if you are familiar with those two projects. The other thing I want to point out about the PUDMR is that, as Mark showed in his slide on the comprehensive plan, this area has been slated for change. You know, I mean, none of it was shown for agricultural. And if, in fact, if you look at like the south side of 75th Street, this kind of mixed residential district extended all the way over to Chateau. And then this area, you know, was adjacent to that. And then even some of the other lots that are to the east of us are even shown as maybe someday in the future having a little more density to them. So this was kind of an area that I think when the comprehensive plan was going through was kind of identified as a potential area for development. And that's why we're here today. I will also say that in talking to Nancy about the time that they bought the home from the previous owner, it was their understanding, and I understand that he told them that he placed that home in a manner on this site so that it could be developed into a future subdivision, which makes sense. I mean, it's turned sideways to 75th Street. It's really close to the, you know, east property line. It's not sitting in the middle of the property like some of the other larger ag lots are. And so the intent has always been that this would be developed into some type of residential subdivision. Again, we're doing 2-unit buildings. We feel like we're complying with the Imagine Shawnee key points that Mark brought up as part of providing a diversity of housing types here. We are taking access from 75th Street, and this project is actually already provided right away for the future improvements to 75th Street. So that portion's already been set aside and ready for the city to make those improvements. We meet all of the city code and standards, including the stormwater detention BMP as required by the city code. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk to them about the neighborhood meeting that we held. One of the key components of this plan was that we provide the 30-foot buffer around the entire perimeter of the project and are committed to preserving the trees that are within that 30-foot buffer. And you can see those here on this aerial along the kind of the western edge here, along this little stretch here, and then along this edge here. In addition, there's some newly planted trees here that we're preserving, and that's one of the reasons why we asked for the utility easements to be placed along the street instead of the rear, is so that we could save all of these trees. And then in these areas here where there were no trees that are immediately adjacent to these homes, we are proposing to do some evergreen trees along that edge. That 30-foot buffer is pretty typical for what you would have for separation between single-family residential and a mixed residential product. That's the same buffer that the Willow Ridge project has along this boundary right here that we adjoin into this area. So it's very common to have that 30-foot buffer, and that's kind of been the standard throughout as far as I've been doing development in Shawnee for between the mixed residential and the single family. We do provide ample guest parking. I know that that's always a concern on a cul-de-sac street. And so we do have not only garage parking, but we have driveway parking. And then we've got several areas where they can park on the street and the fire truck can still get around them without any issue there. We will have an HOA for maintenance of all the common areas, including this amenity feature. that is located, my mouse, there it is. Located right here, that'll have a small picnic type area with a trellis structure on top of it. And then the detention basin, while it serves a stormwater function, can also provide some open space opportunity, as that's going to be landscaped with native plants in order to meet the BMP requirements, but it also provides habitat and that type of thing for birds and butterflies and that type of thing, and can provide an amenity for folks to go and enjoy. On the one last thing on the units themselves, we're intending that they will all be for sale. And as Mark alluded to, doesn't mean that somebody couldn't buy a unit and then rent it. But our intent is we're going to sell them all and have them for sale. As stated by staff, we're providing almost 4 times the amount of site area per unit than what is required in the typical PUD. So I think it was 2,800 required and we're at 11,000. So we are providing a lot more open space around all of these units than what's required by the code. The unit and design finishes are similar quality to the new developments in this area. The 2-story buildings will have 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, roughly 2,000 square feet. 1-story buildings will have 3 bedrooms, 3 baths with 15 square feet. Most of the time, a covered patio. All units will have basements, as Mark said, and all units will have a front door with a front porch on them. Unfortunately, I missed seeing that the color elevations that we provided to staff did not get into the staff report and did not bring those with me. So we do have color elevations for that, and I apologize for that. We did hold a neighborhood meeting. I think there were a total of 9 people there from the adjacent properties at Settle Downs, Willow Ridge, and the small single-family lot right here was she was there, and then the folks along the east boundary were all there. The 4 main topics were 75th Street improvements. When is that going to be done? How much traffic are you going to generate, which Mark covered in his staff report as to when those improvements are potentially going to be finished, and that our traffic volume is relatively low during the AM and PM peak. The other topic was drainage to the north. This property owner had some concerns about this swale and what we were doing in terms of discharging water to that. Again, we're meeting the city standards, which basically regulates the flow from our site so that it's not just dumping onto them with the additional impervious area. We actually have to hold that water, as you all know, in the detention basin and then slowly release it out over time into that swale. But we will continue to work with them on just how the fine tuning of all of that will occur as far as where that pipe is and that type of thing. They also asked why it couldn't remain ag or its current just as a single family home use. Again, this site has been kind of slated for development, both in how the previous owner built the house on the site and then just the comp plan showing that this area is going to change from agricultural use into a more intense or higher density residential type of use. And then the last thing was the trees along the west property line. And I think there was at least one person there from Willow Ridge that was concerned about the trees that were on the Willow Ridge tract and whether the fence there along that west boundary on our property would remain, which our intent is that it will remain. We prefer it to be that more open style fence, because as we've discussed with staff, putting a fence there basically would create this kind of trapped green space that would be difficult for the Willow Ridge folks to maintain over time. And it just kind of becomes an unmaintained area, so to speak. And right now they have access back there that they could do. With that, we feel that Cedar Trace is going to provide homes to all people of all stages of life, from the empty nester to a young professional couple. It'll provide a home option to people seeking to put down roots in Shawnee, or to transition out of their large home into a smaller home so that they can have a second home somewhere else. The close proximity to nearby businesses provide access and customers to those businesses. Residents will enjoy coming home to their retreat with open living areas and modern features and finishes within the home. And attractive buildings and landscape combined with the scenic setting will enhance the community appearance and appeal for the residents of the city. With that, we agree with all the staff comments and the conditions for approval, and ask for your approval of the project. And we'd be happy to answer, and I actually would like to answer any questions that may come up during the public hearing portion of this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. I appreciate that additional information and background. Just for the record, are you in agreement with staff's recommendation and conditions of approval?
We are.
Thank you. With that, does the commission have any questions for the applicant or the staff? Mr. Hollick?
I've got two questions, one for staff and one for the applicant. I'm going to spout off here for a second, but I promise that there's a question. Whenever we talk about development in this area, that intersection of 75th and K7 comes up, right? And I know you said there was development, they're planning on doing an interchange in some time in an amorphous 2030s, right? But we know that intersection at 75th and K7 is a tragedy waiting to happen. We've already had multiple deaths, fatalities on K7 in the city of Shawnee this year alone. Is there a way we can push KDOT to make that intersection a priority? Because it really is impacting the safety of all of our citizens around there. My wife drives down K7 every day to go to KU. She works KU. And she tells me stories of people darting in and back and forth in that intersection. And somebody's going to die there, right? Unless something's done. I'm not saying it has anything to do with your application. Hey, you put your blinders on.
Yep.
Your presentation was great. It is exactly what we want to see in Shawnee. But that intersection scares the bejesus out of me. Is there a way we can pressure KDOT to do something before the 2030s?
Yes, it's constantly on city staff's radar. And I can tell you too, that area is in the Hickok-Zara TIF area. So there will be the potential for city match, which is very important to KDOT to get that done. It's my understanding that at the last meeting for funding for improvements like this, we were very well received and were almost added to the list. I wasn't there, but I believe that's what happened. There's another regional call coming up very soon. And I will tell you that I think our council and staff will be in attendance at every session. And I believe that KDOT, I can't promise anything, but I believe they are at least understanding now that development there is happening. And the beautiful thing about that interchange is it's shown on their future plan. It's not something that we're begging for that they don't want. It's shown on their master K7 corridor plan. And so, again, not making promises, but I think there's traction there, to be very honest with you. And it's at the staff level. I believe there's even been engagement of our federal representatives, certainly our state representatives. And there's been very good dialogue with KDOT. And I think that that's only going to get better in the future as we continue to add volume on K7 with developments in the area.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So moral of that story, call your mayor, call your council person, call your congressperson, call your senator, just get as much pressure as you can, call your governor to get that interchange going. But that's just my opinion. All right. Sorry. I have another question. Okay. Question for the applicant. It really concerns me because I looked up the width of that road, right? That you're proposing putting in there. It looks like it's 28 feet is from what I can tell. And
Right.
so
That's a standard city street.
standard city street. So if you, and then we have 2 parking spots per unit
Mhm.
they're allowed on-street parking from what Mark said.
Off,
I'm worried about the fire
off street.
off street. Okay. I'm worried about if there's on-street parking, the fire truck coming up that road and not being able to get through in a case of an emergency. Have you factored in? I mean, I haven't done the math, but I'm sure you have. You're an engineer, right? So the emergency vehicle coming up that road in that cul-de-sac, and then that turnaround with that strange looking or unique looking cul-de-sac.
Right, so actually, the city street typical width is, I think, 26 or 27. And so most cities have 28, and we chose to do 28 primarily because that's been kind of the standard set that if 2 cars park on each side, you still have enough space for a vehicle, including a fire truck, to go through the center. That doesn't mean he's going to be staying in the lane exactly, but he's going to be splitting the 2 lanes to do that. And with the driveway scenario, if you think about even a single family subdivision where people are parking on both sides of the road, they're kind of weaving back and forth through that, you know, that subdivision. In this particular case, though, I feel like that we have enough driveway parking and garage parking. I mean, we're providing 4 spaces per unit. So we have 2 garage and 2 driveway. Whereas some other attached products may not have 4 spaces per unit, may only have, like, you know, the center townhomes of Willow Ridge, I think, are 1-car garages. I don't quote me, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's correct. So they would have 1 garage, 1 driveway, which then that means that if it's a couple, somebody has to park in the street, right? In this case, we have it to where the garage, we have 2 spaces dedicated, both driveway and garage. So if the garage has some kind of boat, or, you know, or a kayak or whatever, and the guy has, it's always a guy, has to park in, I do, park in the street or in the driveway, that we're not taking up street spaces. So the street spaces are really designed for more guest parking, if you will, is what we're thinking.
I might interject too, that one of the key things that we look at is all these units have full basements. And so why that's important, not only does it provide storm refuge for the residents, but typically the units that have basements, the storage happens in the basement and not in the garages. When you have these structures are built on slabs, the garages become the storage places, and there's no room for the cars, so then they park out in the driveway. In this case, all these have full basements under them, so the likelihood that the garages are going to be completely full of stuff. That's why we're comfortable with having 2 garage spaces and 2 driveway spaces for each unit. So it more than doubles what is required by our parking code. And that's not counting the on-street parking places that could occur legally just parking on alongside the street.
That helps. Thanks. I mean, if somebody has more than 4 cars or 3 cars in a boat, then, you know, probably we should looking at the storage facility we approved right next door, right? So,
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Hawk, any other questions for the applicant or staff? I do have a couple of questions, and I may have missed it, so apologize. Will these be maintenance provided units or not?
I don't know. Yeah, if you want to talk about that. I don't know.
If you please,
Talk about that.
please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Roof, RUF as in Frank. I live at 22604 West 75th Street. I live in the single family home. I will continue to live in the single family home. Some of those questions haven't yet been fleshed out. We would like to kind of mirror what is around us. So the townhome duplex community to the west of us, they do have a HOA that I believe has mowing and snow removal.
And so that would, you know, be something that we would definitely want to have as well. But the city had said something earlier about putting pencil to paper. So that's something that we have to do with the tariffs. We don't know what our costs are going to be. From my understanding, once this, you know, if this gets approved, we have 2 years to build on it. So we do have to put the pencil to pad and see if this is something that is even doable. So it's our intent, you know, to build right away, but again, tariffs are the big unknown here. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And a question for staff on the traffic. I think it was 6 trips in AM peak. Is that,
That's correct. That's what the traffic study indicated.
that just seems a little low to me
Yeah,
with the
so that
number
doesn't
of,
mean total trips. That just means
Correct.
that would be the max number in that given peak hour in the morning or in the evening. So.
thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hanson, I believe that is.
Yeah, sorry, I commented in here, but it doesn't seem to be going through. So I have a question for, I think it's both applicant and staff, and then I just have a general question, but you know, last meeting, we talked pretty much exactly about a larger version of what we're talking about today. And I remember us taking issue with the architectural renderings of the buildings. And so do we not require architectural renderings for everything? Because to me, I don't particularly love that we're approving this on some drawings and not actually seeing what the true finish is. I know we say what the finishes are, but even when the applicant was talking, we talked about their upscale finishes, but we don't really state exactly what that means. And so I'd like to know that. And then I would also like to know what is the price range that we're shooting for each of the units.
Okay, so I can make an attempt here. Nancy did bring the color elevations. So as you can see here, I don't know where the camera is, but basically we do show masonry on the base of the elevation. You know, the front porch, front door. This is the ranch style unit. So a variety of roof here. We got some gables here on the front with a couple different varieties. And then on the 2-story unit, again, we're showing the masonry on the base here. And then again, some gables and some pop outs on the 2nd story here, as well as the roof structure over the entrance of the building. And so these were part of our submittal to the city. So these are on record with the city. In fact, we had comments from that because originally our renderer had put a mountain in the background and we had to take that out. So anyway, and then as far as the price point goes, I mean, again, as Nancy said, that's somewhat market dependent depending on where the economy goes here. But the intent is that they're going to be $400,000 a side, or up to $450,000 a side. And so, you know, we're in that 450 plus range per side, which is, you know, a pretty good product. So.
And I believe those will be part of the final submittal when we see that as well.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's, you know, I can't answer your question, Dan, as to how those did not get included in the packet.
Right.
Well, I'll have to go
I
back
missed
and
it
figure
too.
that out. So my apologies for staff on that. But to answer the question as to why we're not having them provide full architectural detail at this level is because this is a 2-step process, much like last week's or the last meeting's was. And the idea is we're trying to work with the applicants and not have them break the bank in full architecture and full engineering at this stage until they get kind of a thumbs up or thumbs down on the rezoning and the preliminary plan. knowing that they do have to address these issues when they come back with the final plan and have all the i's dotted and t's crossed. So,
Understood.
Mark.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson, following up on your question, I would also, I guess, ask the applicant. I know last time we had discussions about the rear of the units and talked about privacy. And I believe from what I saw in the packet, this looked to have a separation of the patios on the outside, but if the applicant could address the.
That is correct. Yeah, and I believe in both cases. I know it does on, yes, it does. That's the intent anyway.
Thank you. And I know that was something the commission was very interested in, a more foresighted architecture and a little bit more privacy on the back. So appreciate that. Any other questions for the applicant or the staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am, please come forward and state your name and address for the record at the podium. And I believe there should be a notepad over there if you could print your name legibly also.
My name is Tiffany Henches. I live in the southwest corner there, bordering the development. So 22620 West 75th Street. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Sorry. Is it okay if I read through something that I put together? Okay. So I'm here to speak in strong opposition of rezoning, the rezoning request. I believe the proposal fails to meet multiple standards outlined in the golden factors. So Shawnee's municipal code. I'll briefly address each of those things. Number one is existing uses and zoning. So I bought this property in 2019. It had a cracked foundation, water in the basement. It was overgrown with weeds taller than myself. Isn't that high? Because I'm short. The interior was original with popcorn ceilings, a one-room garage joined with an unfinished basement. There was a mother-in-law studio in the back. It used a septic tank that had never been emptied, so there was sewer water flooding the floor. The trees had never been cared for, and there was a pile of yard debris the size of a trampoline. But the only thing I believed in when I bought the house was the ag zoning. The house, basement, and landscaping could all be fixed. All I wanted was the beauty and the privacy that the ag zoning allowed. Since then, I've put a lot of money into the property. It is my forever home, or was, I'm not sure. I braced the foundation, added drains and some sump pumps in the basement. I emptied the septic tank and fixed the plumbing. I completely gutted the interior. I put a wall between the garage and the basement and finished the basement side, adding another bedroom and bathroom. I trimmed the trees, removed yard debris, added a new fence. Someday there will be new sod, a covered patio, and maybe a pool, because someday grandkids would run around this property too. I'm not from here originally. My family is on the West Coast. They regularly nudge me to move closer to them. But I look around and I just feel so blessed to live where I live. I feel that it's a very special place with large lots and a rural feel. I'm not alone. The neighbors on my street, so not across the street where the townhouses are, and not on the other street where the other townhouses are, but our entire street all have the same blessing. They have primarily ag or traditional residential zoning with acreage and single family homes. So this proposal changes everything for me. It adds higher density duplexes not consistent with our street zoning or land use. There will no longer be a row of homes with similar streetscape and harmony. This proposal is out of step with the established development pattern of the neighborhood. Again, I'm not talking about across the street or on the other street. I'm talking about our street. So I think to neglect the north and the east zoning is unfair. You know, I know they're saying it was slated, and they're considering the south and the west, but I think it's important to emphasize the north and the east, which if you go very far is all ag or residential. So number 2 is suitability under existing zoning. So I think the land is perfectly suitable for ag zoning, what ag zoning allows, which is single family homes, agricultural or estate style use. We are a row of homes with acreage. We have homes with driveways. It's not along the side of the road like the U-Haul lot down the street. It's a driveway and a yard. If you were to drive over, it would be clear to you that it is not set up for a multifamily. Even the staff, in the staff report, it mentions offsetting the cul-de-sac due to site constraints. So number 3, character of the neighborhood. Our area is defined by privacy, large lots, and rural residential feel. Inserting 10 duplexes next to acreage homes disrupts this character and introduces density incompatible with the surrounding properties. Number 4 is vacancy of the property. That doesn't apply, it's not vacant. Number 5, public gain versus private hardship. There is no meaningful public gain. It does not provide sidewalks or calm traffic. It does not help with the deficit of affordable housing, as there are currently 12 to 17 townhomes listed for sale and 11 to 12 townhomes available for rent in our zip code. The only people this development benefits is the owner developer. But the private hardship is significant: loss of privacy, property value, safety, and rural quality of life for homeowners like me. Number 6, detrimental effect on nearby property. This property will directly reduce my property's value and the others of nearby homeowners. It sets precedent for further densification of large lot AG and single family residential properties. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. If you go northeast, there are many, many lots with lots of acreage. Would that be okay to develop those as well? Number 7, staff recommendation. I respect the staff's work, but I believe their recommendation overlooks the negative site-specific impacts on the neighboring landowners. Also, you know, discussion about fencing or green belt buffer or traffic mitigation, you know, nothing's really set. And so a lot of unknowns still. Number 8, conformance to the comprehensive plan. I mean, I would have loved to have known that the intent of the comprehensive plan was not to be ag when I moved in, but you know, I don't think we can say what the intent was. I mean, seems like it was zoned as ag. So it calls for traditional residential neighborhoods in this area. This is detached single family homes. Duplexes and medium density houses are in direct conflict with that designation. And I feel personally kind of like I'm being squeezed out. So if you looked at the zoning map, all northeast would be residential, but I would be surrounded completely by townhomes. So I ask you to please deny the rezoning of this property. If not denied, I request at least a 6-foot privacy fence, 30-foot landscape buffer, road and safety improvements tied to infrastructure upgrades, a clear, measurable public benefit. For listening. Really just wanted to be heard, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would wish to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You could also print your name legibly on the notepad up there.
Ed Jenkins, 22520 West 75th Street. My wife Kendra and I, we own the property immediately to the east of the said property. I agree with a lot of the things Ms. Tiffany had to say, but we've been very neighborly with our neighbors that want to develop this property, and we understood their intentions from the day they bought it. So we have a few questions and a few concerns, even though I do agree with a lot with what you said. One of the questions that came up, and I don't think we can probably go over this today, but I just want to mention it because it was mentioned in the neighborhood meeting we had a few weeks ago, is the information we were provided in that meeting and in a packet that was given to me by the roofs, has some lines between our property that I was confused by. One's the property line that we see in the illustration, but there's some other lines that I asked for clarification. Some were contour lines, you could tell real easily what they were, and some were unidentifiable lines. I was told they were fence lines. And so there's always been some question as to where the fence lines and the property lines and the things are between our property. And we've been in discussion about this for the last several years and trying to work all that out. And those lines aren't illustrated today, but I just wanted to mention that those have been in discussion. The other question we had was this idea of 2 years have been mentioned. This development was going to take 2 years. And I don't understand what happens after 2 years. Can anyone answer that for me?
We'll address the questions afterwards. I'm taking notes here.
All right.
Thank you.
The only reason I ask is there's similar developments to the south of us that have had empty lots since we've lived there for 5 years. So, and I don't know what's happening with those lots. So that's the only reason I ask. There's been a lot of mentioning of the two adjacent subdivisions, Settle Downs and Willow Ridge, which we see part of Willow Ridge on this map shown here today. But as Ms. Tiffany mentioned, none of the single family homes are shown on this map or on this illustration. If you look outside my backyard, all I see is ranch style, single family homes or trees. That's it. I don't see Willow Ridge to our west. I just see single family ranch style homes in a rural type atmosphere. And so we've been in the process of planting over 200 trees on our property because we like the views of trees. But they're young. And okay, so that illustrates it. Thank you. Thank you, staff. You can see our property right there to the east of theirs, and you can see our view from the back and what we look at. Thank you. The only thing I would ask is if this plan is approved, we would ask that, and I think it's already stipulated that they be duplexes only or residential homes. It wouldn't be fourplexes or threeplexes, which I think that's already been stipulated. But we'd also ask that they be ranch style homes and not 2-story homes. In trying to understand that areas will develop and trying to at least appeal to the other places adjacent to this property. The last thing, and I think it was mentioned today, I don't understand how all this works. I'm new to this, but I think it was mentioned earlier today about the utility lines from the developer wanting to go through the front. And that's very important to us. It was mentioned because of existing trees and new trees and old trees. And that if this is approved, we'd like that to be highly considered because of the disruption it would do to the existing plants that are there now. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would wish to speak on this item? That would take us out of public hearing and following up on some of the items with the staff. I'll start with Mr. Jenkins. The utilities in the front, that was part of the recommendation. So if approved as presented, there would be approval to have utilities in the front in an effort to help preserve trees. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, originally this plan had utilities in the front on the west side, but had them in the rear yard along the east side. But after the neighborhood meeting, the applicant reached out to staff and suggested that they wanted to change that. And so the plans reflect that the utilities will be moved up along the street and out of the backyards around all the lots in this subdivision as a result of that. So that is an approval that has to be made by the governing body. But staff is comfortable with that request and has stated that in the staff report.
Thank you. Regarding the duplexes, not 3 or 4plex, being a PUDMR, what's in the plan is duplexes. So I would have to follow that plan.
Yeah, and that's was stated in the report as well. As a planned unit development, the proposed development plan is tied to the rezoning. So basically, this particular product would be limited to duplex units. It doesn't specify which ones are single story and which ones are 2-story, but they would have to be limited to duplex buildings, either 1 or 2-story.
Okay. And can you speak about the single story or 2-story, or would that be best from the developer?
And that'd be best for the developer to answer.
Okay.
That's what they proposed. If they came in with all ranch style, we would be accepting of that, but 2-story would also meet our design guidelines too, so.
Okay. And the contour lines and these are not property lines on this map. This is reference, I
We'd
presume.
have to look at the plans. I'm not sure exactly what lines he's referring to. Some of those lines were probably a property line. Some of them could have been indicated of a fence line, like you said. It may have been the utility easement lines that were on the original plan that they had at the night of the neighborhood meeting that have since been moved.
I suspect a survey would have to be completed.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
all this.
Yeah, survey would
identify
have to
the
be
property
done
lines.
before they started any kind of construction. Absolutely. And then I might just touch on the 2 years. I'm not exactly sure what the 2 years was that was referred to. I suspect that it is tied to excise tax abatement agreements that the council is currently offering on the excise tax. And those developer agreements are usually tied to a 24-month time frame from the date that the final plat is recorded. And those agreements generally state that all the public and private infrastructure has to be constructed, and at least 20% of the residential units have to be completed within a 24-month period to be eligible for that excise tax abatement. So that would be the only 2-year time frame that would be on there that would be city stipulated.
Thank you. And I know that building can take time to sell and develop, and so I suspect it would be difficult to put an absolute when everything would be built out.
Correct.
And from the goes Miss Henderson. I guess a detrimental effect on the nearby property. Mark, any thoughts, or staff, any thoughts on that?
I mean, the idea that we show in the future land use guide, I mean, it was never intended to always be agricultural. I mean, it was going to be developed at some point in the future. Our comprehensive plan shows it as traditional residential. When we reviewed the comprehensive plan most recently, we looked at this property, but chose to keep it as traditional residential, knowing that they were looking at doing some sort of development on this property, but also knowing that if we change it to a mixed residential designation, then that could open it up to 3plexes and 4plexes and a whole lot more in tents type development. And so it was chosen to leave this as traditional residential, but also with the understanding that an expansion of the planned mixed residential for like a duplex type development might be an appropriate fit for this piece of property.
So it was updated to residential in the last the major comprehensive.
No, it was when the new comprehensive plan was developed in 2021, this was shown as traditional residential, and it remained unchanged during our last revision.
Okay. And then if we could have the applicant perhaps address the two-story, single-story, and any comments on the fence, privacy fence that was suggested.
Yep, so as far as the types of units, I mean, we've shown on our plan an indication of possible what it could be, but it's really more dependent on what the market wants. So the way these typically work is we'll build the street and all the infrastructure, and then the lots or units are for sale, and we have two different product offerings. And if somebody comes in and says, hey, we want to put a ranch unit on this, the lots are set up, with the exception of one, that they can fit in either or, okay? That first unit or the second unit in on the left side has to be a special build unit just because of the size, and we haven't determined if that's going to be a ranch or a two-story, but you'll notice the footprint's a little bit different there. But so it's purely market driven based on what it is. So they could end up all being ranches, or they could all end up being more two-story. My guess, just based on market and what's out there, is there's probably going to be a few more ranches than there are two-story, but that's my guess based on today's market of, you know, empty nester folks wanting to get out of their larger home and have a second home somewhere else and have a, you know, a lock and leave situation. I will also say that that's part of the differentiation between this product and the other two that are adjacent. I think Settle Downs is all two-story product, and they are a drive under garage where you have to walk up half a floor to get to the main level. I remember there being several stairs outside the front door, whereas this is more of a really enter on a typical stoop like you would your single family home and go right in. So you got like one step or a threshold step before you get into the unit, which is another key marketing thing that a lot of builders that are offering this product are doing. And then I would say the same thing for Willow Ridge, that the vast majority of those are probably two-story units. And so this product, the idea was to have a little more variety and offer that ranch style product. And then the second thing in terms of kind of the compatibility, was that the other question? Make sure I answer the
compatibility and the fence also.
Okay. So on the fence, I believe what they were looking at was the original easement line that we had shown on there. So this was a platted single family or a platted lot at one point in time, because you had to plat it in order to put the house on it. Okay. So that's when they did that platting, the city standard was to, as always, put 10-foot utility easement all the way around the outside of a lot. That's the typical standard for the city of Shawnee. So today that 10-foot UE exists. We don't believe there's anything in it. And so what we'd like to do is vacate that and then move it out to the street. And that's why there were two lines there at that point.
Regarding the,
but we do have a survey. So,
and so I was referring to actually the fence, the other resident had requested, if this were to be approved, they would highly encourage or would like to have a 6-foot fence around the edge of the property. Curious your thoughts on that.
Well, again, so there's already a fence there. And so while it's not it's more of an open fence, and anything that we do as far as putting a fence on the property line will impact the existing trees that are there. So You know, it's kind of a catch-22 of whether you put a fence in it and risk potential root damage to the tree, or whether you leave the existing fence. And when you actually look at it, I don't know if you can see it in that aerial that Mark had up before, but that line is pretty dense. When it's fully leafed out, you really can't see that house from our subject property, because there's a lot of undergrowth and shrubby type material, as well as the shade trees there. And then I guess the last thing I just want to talk about is, I go back to, again, kind of the context. So if you look at the comprehensive plan, all the way across the whole south side of these properties is PUDMR mixed residential type of stuff, clear over the chateau. And with this being within the TIF district that's been defined, I think it's pretty clear that the city's intent is that they really see this as not just where we're at right here, but even clear over to Monticello, because we've been worked on projects over on Monticello, as far as being a much more intense land use pattern than ag rural lots. I mean, there's properties over there that, you know, have been talked about being commercial. I believe at 75th and Monticello. And so the character is going to change. I mean, that was been kind of the plan. And so I feel like we're in keeping with kind of that direction the city's going with what they would like to see.
Thank you. Ask the commission, did I miss anything here? We have moved out of public hearing, but in this case, I'll make an exception to that. Please come forward to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Brenda Redmond, and I am the northeast neighbor, 22505 West 74th Street. Anyway, I'm just really confused about what a dry detention basin is. Since that's right up next to my property, I would like to know how it's going to look.
Sure. I would ask the staff or the applicant to speak to that item.
Yeah, so basically, it's a shallow area, and in order to have it comply with the BMP standards, it will be planted with some type of native vegetation. We typically use a short prairie mix and mostly grasses. So we try to avoid plants that are going to get over 3 feet. We try to keep everything 3 feet or under, just so that it doesn't get a completely unruly appearance to it. And not only for the adjacent residents, for our own residents as well, because you know, we're trying to sell lots in here, and the last thing that we want is have somebody pull in and go, why aren't they mowing that, or why does it look so weedy, you know? So we use a short prairie grass mix is typically, and there may be a few forbs or wildflowers in there, but that's required by the BMP in order to meet stormwater.
So could you just explain what BMP is?
Best management practice. So basically, we're not only required to control the volume of runoff, but we're also have to essentially clean the water. So when the water comes off the street, it picks up a little bit of sediment, the road salts that are put on the road, a little bit of brake dust, that kind of thing. So it goes into that basin, which the native plants typically like. A lot of that kind of iron rich type of stuff that goes in there, and it allows that to filter out. And when the water then goes into the receiving channel to the north here, it will be cleaner. It won't be like drinking water, but it will be cleaner, and it has filtered out some of that sediment load on there.
So that basin you would expect it to typically be dry, except for after a storm where water might collect in it.
Correct.
And then over time dry out.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's to reduce the flow of water into the streamway.
Correct, yeah.
Anything else to add from the staff on that? Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Any other follow-up items from the commission? Commissioner Nunick.
I guess I would like to say this is an interesting project, especially since the owner is living on the property, developing it on her own land. We, you can imagine, see a lot of developments that are shown here on this map, and I find this one to be the most appealing, if you will, of this type of a development. So, it's all about how the progression of residents in the different neighborhoods exist with one another. I think this is as good as you're going to get. And if that's 75th Street, I mean, interchange comes in, you're not going to be too far away from it, from some roadways to the east or to the west there. So I think this is about as good as you can get. And the size of lots is pretty much unheard of. And I think, Mark, you could correct me on this, but this type of development, usually you don't have these larger lots. So I think this is a good fit for this area.
So coming back into commission discussion, other discussion items from the commission. Commissioner Van Wallingham.
So I'll just follow up on Commissioner Nenick's comments. Which I concur with, by the way. These, but to say something a little different, and I think Commissioner Hanson mentioned this earlier. I appreciate the architectural detail that you're providing in these properties. It will give a fair amount of privacy, or at least privacy provided by architectural details on the backs of the buildings, which sometimes we don't see, but we do see that here. And I think that will provide for a little more upscale feel to these properties. So I think it is a nice looking project, considering what's in the market out there.
So I'm struggling with this one. If we were to put our blinders on and just look at the project itself and without anything, yeah, I agree totally with Commissioner Nunick and Commissioner Van Wallingham. It's, ideal for what we're trying to do. I mean, I love the response about the parking question, right? 4 spots per lot, plus a basement that Mark built. So that was a really, really big concern of mine, to make sure it was safe. I love the fact that you're keeping the trees, right? And that foliage is very, very, thank you for that. The floodplain answer, we always have that question come up, especially in this area. So that's a great solution. This is, like I said, the kind of development we're looking for, but I'm not unsympathetic for Mr. Jenkins and Ms. Henderson's plight as well, right? I mean, I moved here in 2003 as one of the first houses in my subdivision, and then my phase of my subdivision, and I got to look out my back deck, and it was beautiful. There was agriculture, there was wooded, it was nice, and within 3 years there were houses all over the place. So I understand that is probably going to happen, but I also think for this area, I think it's pretty obvious that this was going to be developed. I mean, everywhere in every neighborhood around is developed. So I think, it's a good project. I'm not going to rehash the interchange at 75th and K7. I think we talked about that a lot. But yeah, so this is my struggle with this.
Any other discussion from the commission? Commissioner Avers.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The one thing that I dislike the most about this is we're creating a land island here with a single family home. And I think that's going to be a negative impact on the property values there, just because now there's no opportunity to tie in with something else for a bigger development here. That said, it's also seems like a great project for the area it fits in. It's creating more of a buffer and a contour, so to speak, to further development of the whole Zara TIF district that we're wanting to see. So I can see things that aren't perfect with it. I can see things that are really, really good about it.
Any other discussion from the commission? That, would anyone care to make a motion on this item? I guess before we go there, I would just add from my perspective, I do like the architecture in the back. I mentioned that earlier and the privacy. Agree with Commissioner Van Wallingham on that as well. I do also struggle with the landlocking the single family residence there. And you know, that is one of my larger concerns there. But I also recognize that, you know, there's another landowner there that has a desire to change their property following the guidelines laid out by the city. So this is a tough one from that perspective, but I think is a very, very good plan. With that, would anyone care to make a motion on this item? Commissioner Nunick.
Yes. Like to make a recommendation to approve project PUD 25-02, which includes rezoning from ag to PUDMR planned unit development, residential, mixed residential, and a preliminary development plan for Cedar Trace located at 22604 West 75th Street, subject to the following by the
Thank you. Do we have a second on this item? Commissioner Lucky?
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second for approval of project PUD 25-02, which includes rezoning from AG agriculture to PUDMR, planned unit development, mixed residential, and a preliminary development plan for Cedar Trace located at 22604 West 75th Street, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. That would take us to miscellaneous items this evening. Does the commission have any items for the staff this evening? I do have an item for staff. Looking at the policy, perhaps we might want to review policy statement 24 about the utilities where it calls out telephone, electric, and cable. We may want to update that with some different verbiage. I think we all understand the intent, but any other items for the staff? Okay, does staff have any items for the commission?
I just have one thing.
We're still in our meeting here. That's okay. Go ahead, Doug.
Just one thing, our new planner 3, Colin Victory from Overland Park, 7 years experience, started today. He's going to be the new Mark, now that Mark is the new Lauren. So we're almost back to original staffing. We have an offer out that has been accepted to a person who is still in school at UMKC with the intent of starting in June as a planner 1. And so we've been persistent and picky, and I think we're getting back to full staffing. Other department notes that may impact you. through reorganization, the GIS division. A lot of what we do and present to you is through geographic informational system mapping, property ID. That division had reported since its inauguration as a division, had reported to IT through reorganization. That division is now going to be a part of the Community Development Department and will be probably more involved with a lot of the reporting that we do. They've helped us immensely over the years, but I think there's even some opportunities for some more efficiencies using their expertise to make us better. So I wanted to let you all know that as well.
Great, appreciate it. Question on the staffing. I'm just curious, do you all ever utilize interns?
Yeah, actually we do. We've utilized, actually Leo's son was an intern and did a parking analysis for us for downtown. Yeah. Yeah, the question would be if a person wants experience or if they want to get rich. But we do utilize interns. Right now, we just don't have the capacity to, you want to mentor an intern that's usually in school. And so at being this less staffed than normal, we won't be having an intern now. We've had other interns in the past that have helped us with sign code reviews, special event, calling other cities, what do they do? But for this fiscal year, I'm not, 26, I'm not budgeting for an intern this year. As Leo knows, if I don't budget, we still sometimes will take on an intern, but if I haven't budgeted for it, then there's no pay associated with it.
Great. Any other items for the mission? Okay, if there's nothing else, accepting motions for adjournment. Commissioner Pollock.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Aber.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 9:15 p.m. And we had a late start.